And so it is we do embrace and welcome Coptic board member, minister, teacher, and healer. It's Steve Krejcik tonight to present. He's the founder of Grey Wolf Healing Therapies, and Steve has helped thousands of individuals clear emotional and energetic roadblocks using the techniques of the Quero shamans of Peru. He has published numerous articles on self-improvement and spiritual growth. Steve believes that one's highest goal in life is to know yourself, and we measure our spiritual progress by the level of inner peace, joy, and love that we feel and express. Today's topic with Steve, it's the most important thing. We'll learn more about that in a bit.
So today I want to talk about most important thing. So just kind of in your mind, think about what is the most important thing to you? Is it finding inner peace? Is it happiness? Is it having $1 million, or I guess nowadays that's not that much, say $10 million? Or, is it helping people? What would, just kind of think about that in your own mind's eye. What might be the most important thing for you? So a short while ago, I was in a shaman class, and we went on a journey. And the purpose of the journey was go back in time and meet the Buddha. And the Buddha will give you a message. So I went on the journey, and I went back, and I came into this like temple, and there was the Buddha, and quite a presence, I will say. And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "Greetings, traveler from the future. The lesson for you, or the message for you, is the most important thing is nothing." And I was like, "What?" So I've been pondering that over the last several months, and so I'd like to attempt to share, what I found about that, as I studied it more. And first of all, you come upon, well, what the heck does that mean? How can the most important thing be nothing, right? Because that's a contradiction. And it is a contradiction. It's one of those paradoxes that you can't solve. It's not something about giving up your life. When we look at the Buddha, in his life, he spent a good part of his life, I don't know, what would you call it, abstinence, or not eating, only eating a small amount of food, starving himself, meditating by a tree. But he really didn't find enlightenment until after he gave all that up. So I don't feel that we need to go sit in a cave and we need to do all this kind of stuff to find this. But really, what is the nothing, right? And when you think about it in your mind, it just doesn't work. And that's the whole idea, because this is not something you can think about, right? So when humans left the garden, they had eaten from the fruit from the tree of good and evil. In other words, they developed the ability to judge. This is good, this is bad. And in doing that, they stepped out of the timelessness and stepped into time. And so they forgot about that part of us which is non-thought. Ramana Maharshi said, he was asked, how do you measure a person's spirituality? And the answer was, a person's spirituality is measured by their ability to not think. Right? How many of us have that chattering monkey mind that just won't stop? Me too, right? And sometimes you just can't stop thinking. Maybe you wake up in the middle of the night or whatever, and you just can't stop thinking, right? Well, that is effectively our being trapped in time. So where does that thinking come from, right? So let's take a look at that. The thinking, the thinking is our conditioned mind, and we are conditioned from past lives, if there is such a thing. We are conditioned through our ancestors. Just think about the things that our great, great, great grandparents had to deal with is in us because it's passed through. How many of you have ever woken up and said, "Oh my God, I'm like my father," or "I'm like my mother"? you know, and and these things are all so subtle that we don't even notice them. And so this conditioning rules us. And so we can try to get rid of it, and you can go to therapy, which is good, or you can go to healers, or you can try on solving these things. But imagine a diamond, and above that diamond is a mountain of dirt. And that mountain of dirt is all of our conditioned response, all of our conditioning that we've had as we were growing up, and those things which have stuck to us. So to try to get rid of all of that conditioning is kind of like trying to move that mountain of dirt with a tablespoon. You're going to be, okay, I got one. Okay, I just solved that. I feel a whole lot better. Whoo, I feel great. Woo-hoo. Then the next day something else comes up. So you move another tablespoon, and you're on and on and on, trying to clear up all of this crap, for lack of a better term, which controls our lives and keeps us from that silence, which keeps our mind yakking away constantly, judging this, judging that. Oh, this is good, this is bad, too cold, too warm. But when we step into the nothing, we move that mountain instantly. The mountain is gone. And so the nothing, as would be called by the Buddha, might be called grace in the Christian terms. Eckhart Tolle might call it the now. Others might call it presence. And these are all things that we struggle with, and we go to one webinar after another to try to figure this out, trying to put more information in our head so that we might be able to figure it out, because that's the way we're trained. Look at the education system. Memorize, 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 and figure out things from what you memorized. Use your head, would you? How many parents ever said that to you? Use your head already. And so we almost need to train ourselves to not think, to not do that, to put that nothingness first before the thought. So we may do it, and you may have a meditation, and you're done with the meditation, and you're feeling great, and you're feeling in that place of peace, and your mind is quieted down. And then you go out and you start driving home or something, and somebody cuts you off, and it's like, hey, you're flipping the bird or something at the guy, right? And that's part of our conditioning. So, or in high school, you said something to somebody. Maybe you were somebody you had this crush on, right? The cutest guy or girl in school, and you had this crush on him, and you say something really stupid, and they laughed at you, and you still feel embarrassed about it. Or you did something and you got caught, and your parents hollered at you, and you still feel that pain of the spanking or the punishment that you received. You feel that trauma inside of you. And these are still there, and they're very real. And so this is all of the stuff. I love the Course in Miracles saying, "My grievances hide the light of the world in me," right? So again, you can do all these techniques and all these things, and they're all good and they're all necessary. But ultimately, the best way is to just step out of it. Now, if you don't, like I was talking about, you come back into it and oops, I failed. Well, you don't condemn yourself, because it goes back to that story of the good wolf and the bad wolf inside of us fighting, right? Which one is going to win? It's the one we feed. So if you condemn yourself, you're feeding the thoughts. If you accept what you are for who you are, you're feeding the white wolf. You're feeding the good wolf. Like when I used to smoke cigarettes, I couldn't quit. I tried to quit and I'd be, oh, I smoked again. And then one of my teachers said to me, she was a therapist and my philosophy teacher, she said, Steve, what you should do is you should praise yourself for those 2 hours you went without a cigarette instead of condemning yourself for having a cigarette after 2 hours. And you'll be amazed at what that will do for you. And that was ultimately how I was able to quit both times. And but it really does work because we find this negative chatter that we don't accept. How many people here feel a little uncomfortable receiving gifts or receiving acclamations if you go up in front of a group because you've done something, right? Right, exactly. Because we can't accept these gifts for us. We're probably a very giving person. We can give and give and give, but we can't accept our own gifts because we've had these voices in our head for so long, or our parents or somebody, oh, you'll never amount to anything. So again, the way to move through this easily and quickly is to step into the nothing. And when you do step into the nothing, at first it'll be a little bit, and then you'll pop back into it. And it might only be 5% of your time. It might be more. But if you feed that nothingness, it will happen more and more. Okay, so like, does this mean that we have to give up everything, right? Do we have to give up all of our possessions? Do we have to give up these luxuries? No, we don't. We can have all the luxuries, but they become secondary. And when you experience the nothing, they are secondary. If you lost everything today, you would be fine because you have yourself and you have that nothing. So you're all sitting there going, I have no idea what you're talking about, Steve. What the heck is the nothing, right? So here's some things we can do. So first of all, this is not a goal. This is not a lesson. This is not something you do. It's not something you achieve. It's something you be, or you just allow. So again, it comes back into that acceptance, to accept things. And so for me, I like to do some yoga. I like to do some breathing, and that the yoga tires out my body, the breathing tires out my mind, and then I can step into that space. And you only need to be there for a second because it's timeless. And when you're there for a second, it feels like you're there for eternity. And so a couple things that you can do is to pay attention to the nothing. Okay? In other words, listen to the silence. So what does that mean, right? Because we're so used to listening to things. Listen as if there's a bell ringing in the distance or a bird squawking in the distance that you're listening for. Just listen. And there's nothing there. And in doing that, that brings you into it. Your thinking mind is going to say, oh, that's nothing. Just come back to thinking. I know what I'm talking about. I'm the thinking mind. I'm the boss around here. That's stupid. You're wasting your time. But it isn't. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. So you could listen to the nothing, or even if you're listening to loud rock music, there's still silence between the notes. All sound comes from nothing. So listen to the source of that sound. Listen to where the sound comes from, the silent space between my voice. And just take a moment and just listen as if you're listening for something in the distance. Close your eyes and just listen and just feel how your mind stops. And your thinking mind is going to say, oh, that's nothing. And it's right. It's nothing. And it's perfect. Another way to do it would be to like ring a bell and listen to the bell as it goes into silence. And then listen to the silence is another thing you could do. Or You walk into a room, and what's the first thing? Say you come to someone's house, the first thing you think about is possibly commentary on the house. I don't really like the color on the walls, or this furniture looks a little out of place. It doesn't quite match the rug, or this or that. But instead of doing that, focus on the space in the room. It's easy to do if you just allow it. Again, this is not a goal. This is not a technique. This is just a way of being, of accepting. You can body awareness. You can allow yourself to feel your body. I mean, I think we've all done meditations, and what about the meditation where you start at your feet and you feel your feet and you tense your feet and relax them, and then you tense your legs and relax them, and you tense each part of your body? That's bringing your focus into your body and into body awareness. And that's another way, because when you're focused on your body, you can't be thinking. Likewise, if you're focused on your breath, one of a great way to do that is when you're breathing, if maybe you're doing the alternate nostril or the cobra breath or other breathing techniques. But another way you can do it is just focus on your breath and bring your attention into your throat and feel the breath going in and out of your throat. And if you don't feel it at first, you can make like a little wind sound, like a little bit of a Darth Vader thing, like a. And just focus on that. Just take a moment, and everybody, let's just take a moment and do that. Just focus on your breath. Bring your attention into your throat and feel the breath moving in and out of your lungs. And if you need to make a little sound to help, just do that for a moment. This is beyond the material world. You still can enjoy the material world. I once went to one of my shaman teachers, and I said to her, well, look at this. You should listen to this great CD set that I have. It's on manifesting, and it's one of the best ones I've ever heard on manifesting, in terms of a nice collection of manifesting. And she looked at me and she said, I don't want it. She said, why would you want to manifest that? I have everything I want. She said, if people spent as much time doing their own work and going inside, Spirit would bring them everything they need. There would be no lack. So I'm not there. I'm totally for manifesting, and I believe it works, and Spirit will bring you what you want. But also remember, when you do that if you need something, that there's a lack there that causes you to need that. And so there'll be a lesson that comes with that manifesting. And so just to be aware of that. And it's perfectly good. And like I said, I do it all the time and I enjoy it. And good. I'm not quite at that point where I can just be totally happy with the world as it is around me, maybe someday. But I still have a lot of goals and things which are, again, beyond the nothing. We're all human and we're all moving towards that goal. So basically, you can move into the nothing and you can be there permanently eventually. You can be more and more there. And it doesn't mean that you won't be able to think or you won't be able to do things if you got to schedule a flight or pay your bills. There's always the thinking mind is there. Remember, the thinking mind is a horrible master, but it's a great servant. And that nothing, stepping outside of the thinking mind, outside of the world of good and evil, outside of the world of judgment, is where we find the nothing. And it will become a larger part of your life. Because when you become the nothing, you have everything. And then you won't need to chase these goals and all these worldly things, and Spirit will provide you everything you need simply and effortlessly. So my closing remarks to you would be to be the most important thing, nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Going into the nothing to have everything. That's an interesting thought to ponder. It's kind of like finding the still small voice within that bids the soul arise is some of the lyrics of I Am What Men Call God that kind of comes to mind with your presentation. So
Yeah.
thank you. Anyone have comments, thoughts, or things to add to Steve's talk tonight?
Well, Steve, when you said nothing, my first thought was no thing.
Yes, perfect. It is.
No thing, yeah.
No thing. Spirit, love. This is no thing. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Can
Laura?
I ask you? I'm doing a practice from the Way of Mastery right now, and it's a 10-minute exercise every hour. It's not a 10-minute meditation. It's 10 minutes of being aware of nothing. Just walking around the house. Maybe you're cleaning something. Maybe you're getting something out of the refrigerator. Just no thoughts. 10 minutes out of every hour, no thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great. How's that going?
Well, I don't remember 10 minutes every hour, but I did get 4 or 5, 10 minutes in today. just trying to be, it's sort of like trying to just going into a non-thinking state.
Yep. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Michael Joy?
Well, a couple of things, Lori. 10 minutes is a long time to be moving around in your life and not having any thoughts. And Steve, I have a woman I have worked with for many, many years. That's how she leads us into meditation. Listen for the furthest thought. So you expanded on that idea for me, and I really appreciate it. It's really nice.
Eckhart Tolle tells a story about a monk and a master are traveling along, and the young guy says to the master, "Master, how do we enter Zen?" And the master says, "Do you hear that babbling brook in the distance?" And after a minute or two of really listening, he says, "I do, I hear it." And he says, "Enter Zen from there." And then the young monk has a moment of satori, of enlightenment. And he goes, "Oh, I got it." And so then they continue walking on, and he says, "Master, what would you have said if I couldn't hear the babbling brook?" And he looks at him and he says, "Enter Zen from there." So, and it took me like 20 years to figure that one out. But that's what it is. It's listening in the distance, and that that awareness that Lori spoke about, that when we come into that nothingness, that is the oneness. So the thinking is our individuality. And when we come into that awareness, it's all the same awareness. So Lori's awareness and my awareness would be the same one that the masters talk about. So, and our thinking minds are all like, that's nothing. And you're like, yeah, it is nothing. You're right. But we have to overcome that and just allow it, because if you allow it, then that's when it becomes super powerful and you want more of it because it's so beautiful and peaceful. Right? And when you say, Lori, from your experiences, that it's wonderful, or Michael, or yeah,
It's great to not be thinking.
yes,
It's wonderful to not be thinking about anything or worrying, because Because what you do when you're thinking, basically, you start worrying, you start planning, you start blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
And your mind is going, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah.
And it takes up
The
so much
moments-
energy to think. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
For me, the moments of stillness are kind of fleeting. I stay in them for a while and my choice in meditation would be stillness. I mean, the guided meditations are very nice, but I like the silent meditations where you have the opportunity to just be still and focus inward. But to me, they seem fleeting. They don't last for very long. That's why I said to Lori, you're moving around your day and you're trying to be in that place of stillness for 10 minutes. That's a long time. But what an achievement that would be.
Or even, even if you are thinking, to be aware of the nothingness or the stillness while you're thinking. So it's still a part of you. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. So like I kind of believe, everyone's seen that picture of the footprints, the Christian footprints on the beach. And then it says, well, Jesus, how come, you're always, there's two footprints and you're walking next to me, but in my worst time, there's only one set of footprints. Why did you abandon me? And then Jesus says, not because I abandoned you, because I was carrying you. So to me, that Christ consciousness, if you will, that is the nothing. That's just Jesus's version of the same thing that Buddha taught. That it's the nothingness, it's that stillness that, if you don't have it and something bad happens in your life, someone close dies or something, you are miserable. Like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. We've all been through that dark night of the soul, right? Where it just seems like, I just don't know if I can go on another day. And yet, when you have that stillness or that peace or that Christ inside of you, yeah, you're still mourn, you still cry, you still feel sad, but there's still a bit of joy there that carries you along, that says, I know I'm going to get through this, and I know there's going to be a better day ahead. This too shall pass, if you will. And so to, take the time to do this now, instead of waiting until the doctor says, oh, you got 2 weeks to live. And then, and we're all here for that very reason, because we're learning this now as we go through life, so that when we do come to those challenging times in life, that we will have that consciousness to carry us along in those dark times, in that dark night of the soul that we all go through, many in our lives. So great. Any other questions or comments, anyone?
Well, it's interesting. Probably about a month ago or so, I just started a Joe Dispenza, and it's pretty much a nothing meditation to get you into nothing, no one, no place, nowhere. And I just started it, and my tenants downstairs break out in an all-out fight. And so the thought crosses my mind, should I stop the meditation? And then it's like, no. So I continued staying in the nothing place and heard sounds I've never heard out of this house before. And it was incredible, because I was able to stay there and be in a real good spot, and not have what was going on around me affect me, because I was nowhere, no time, no space, nobody, nothing. And it was really powerful being in that space, especially, with World War III going on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. And especially in these times of trauma in the world, right? There's a lot of trauma going on in the world. So to be able to walk in that world, in that place of peace, you're almost bringing your own little bubble. Like sometimes somebody says, oh, that person, they're in their own world. And you're like, yep. And I'm loving it. Because they're going to try to suck you in. People, the people you live with, or, Linda's tenants or whoever, they're not going to like you to be happy. What do they say? Misery loves company. And so they're going to they're going to want to suck you into this. And if they do, good. Just say, okay, I did. All right, I'm just going to go back into it, and I'm going to just keep on being. There's no trying, there's no doing. It's just being.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to keep on being, and it will become more and more as you move on. You'll find it's easier and easier to do, and it will be more and more a part of your life. And it will be it's a good thing. Anyone
Well,
else? Any other thoughts?
it's especially healing to when you're all tied up with, you've got maybe 5 chores that are very important and you have to do them. And, you're kind of stressed out and you're buying into it, right? You need to take a break, go where your happy place is or where your quiet place is, and block it out. Just block it out and try not to think. And it's very healing because when you get done with it, you're in a whole different space. So,
Yep.
And I would bet that your meditation and your being in a quiet space may have prevented that third world war going on below you from escalating even further than it did.
Actually, I just saw a picture of a big hole in the wall downstairs. So I think it kind of was pretty bad, but I was in a place where I didn't care.
I like the Darth Vader breath too.
Yeah.
Your breath. Were you here?
And that's a little
Yeah, on
bit,
that too.
it's like an offshoot of the Cobra breath, right? Because
Mhm.
you're doing that when you're doing the Cobra breath.
Mhm.
And, but it does really help you to bring your tension there. There's a group called Clair Vision that calls that throat friction. And I think it comes from some ancient Indian, techniques, but it is very powerful. Yeah.
I was wondering if Linda might put in the chat the name of the person in that nothing meditation. That sounds intriguing to me.
Dispenza?
Dispenza?
Was it Joe Dispenza? Dispenza?
Yeah, my dogs were ringing. Sorry, my dogs were ringing the bell to go out. Yes, it's Joe Dispenza, and it's one of the meditations in his online course.
How do you spell his last name?
Dispenza.
C-A. Okay. Thank you.
And what's the name of the course?
It's 2 courses put together, online progressive course. It's the only one he has online.
Okay.
But and he's got a lot of good meditations in there.
He has a lot of YouTube videos too, so you might want to check that out and see if maybe
does.
he's got that. It might be out there on YouTube.
It could.
And
I
what
gotta
was,
go. The bell's ringing.
what was the clear vision thing that you said something about, Steve?
Yeah, it's a group called Clair Vision.
Clair.
Clair Vision.
Claire?
I don't know, Mike. Mike, do you have any?
I think
website or anything?
I think it if you just Google Clair Vision, it's Clair, like clairsentience, CLAIRE vision.
Yeah, they have some good stuff with them too. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments? Did anyone experience anything differently? Brief moments.
I can share that it's been a while ago. I was in a class and there were several people who were attending the class that had probably not ever meditated. And so the gal who was teaching the class said, it's not about stopping thinking, because that's almost terrifying to people. How do I do that? So instead of that, she said, practice focus. So she had everybody close their eyes and she went through each of our senses. feel your bottom sitting on the chair, feel your arms resting in your lap, so it was your sense of feeling, and then listen what is happening in the space around you. So it was focusing, and that really, it went over very well. And I thought it was quite interesting too. So you're not seeing, but it stops the chatter mind then, because it's a focusing. So that's another technique.
Yeah, and focusing on a candle flame or focusing on any single thing is, yeah, you're right, because when you're focusing, you can't be thinking.
And
That's a good one.
and also when you're in the nothing, you're in the now, you're in the presence. And Steve, I think you said that too, which is really important, because when you are in the present, like right now, if you really focus on being present, you could tap into the nothing.
One of the things when I did an audiobook with The Power of Now, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm so not in the now most of the time. And then Eckhart Tolle said, as soon as you recognize that you're not in the now, you're in it.
That's right.
Well, and think about how many people that we know that they're totally unaware of what they're doing, right? They blame everything on everybody else. They push everything out external. They're giving their power away.
Mhm.
And, and they're just not aware of who they are. And we all have the same things at different levels. But yeah, so that's a really good point. Thank you. That's a really good point, that awareness. If you think about it, humans are unique in that they have that. Animals will have that to a minor degree, but humans can be self-aware, and most animals don't. Lions do their lion thing, and zebras do their zebra thing, and humans do whatever they do. We have the ability to be many things, which is sometimes
Yeah, I think
challenging.
animals, though, they're in the now because they're just do what they do. The different stories about, well, he's a snake. What do you expect him to do? That kind of thing. And,
That's very funny.
Right.
they just do what they do.
And yeah. There's a story of a master that would, when the scorpions would come into his room, he would pick them up and put them outside, and the scorpions would always sting him. And one of the students says, "Masters, why do you continue to do that when you know it's going to sting you?" And he said, "Because it's in my nature to help them, and it's in their nature to sting me. So we're just both being in our own nature, so it's okay." He's not living that conditioned response in the past. He's living in the present. He doesn't care what happened yesterday. He's not, saying, "Oh, well, if I do this, this will happen," that causal thing. So, yeah, that's good. Well, good. Well, great. If anybody else have anything else to say?
When I was a kid, I would catch my dad staring off into space. He built our house, so I just thought he was just, finished accomplishment and thinking about how good it was and blah, blah, blah. But I really think that he knew how to go into the nothingness just like that. I mean, and when I go into meditation, I think about that frequently, that he just stopped and was staring off into space. And, we've all done that. And I'm finding that that's a good way for me to get into a space of nothingness. If I'm having a challenge, I'll just stop and stare off into space. And it works every time.
Good idea. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Claudia.
You're welcome.
Perfect. All right.
That's what we were talking on. exercise class about how a friend of mine had some family members in the past who had tickets to come to America on the well, what's the ship that sunk?
Titanic.
The
Titanic.
Titanic. And they missed the boat. Can you imagine how upset they must have been that they missed that boat? And I'm going, oh my God, divine intervention. And then this other lady, she says, yeah, when something comes at me and it's bothering me, she says, I just stop and wait. Because we just don't know what it's for. It's and everything is for us. So yeah, so just, that was that Titanic thing. That was a perfect example of don't get upset before you know what this is all about.
Right. And yeah, and everything that happens to us and everything that we do is in our nature for who we are right now and for who everybody else is right now. It's all perfect just the way it is.
Catherine, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was just thinking of how about focusing on mantras, on a mantra.
Oh, yeah.
What would
Yeah.
we, what was that?
Mantra?
Mantra?
Right.
Yeah, and that's the same. It's the same type of thing because you're bringing your focus in. So you can be focused on a word, you can be focused on a candle. Like Janice said, focus on your inner body or focus on a part of your body or listen. Just focus on one of your senses, and the mantra is perfect for that too. There's just a quick story on that. I thought that was kind of interesting. In this language, the name for the devil is very similar to the name for the god or that. And so this one young student got the names wrong and was focusing on the devil and meditating on the devil with all of love and heart and everything. And that student still realized enlightenment not because he was focusing on the name or focusing on the wrong name. It was the focusing that was helping them and the love that they were doing. Oh, good. Yes. Thank you, Alan. Devil equals lived backwards. And so the mantras are perfect. And I guess my point is, it might help, I don't know, to have a special mantra from a guru or something, but focus on anything. Just focus on love, the word love, or anything that you want. And I think the conclusion that, from what we were all coming to is, it's just focus on one thing, whether it's with your hearing, with your sight, with your mind, with your breath, with your body, any one of the senses. Janice, you summarized it very nicely. Thank you. That was good. Yeah. So great. Thank you. Good comment. Anyone else?
You just made me
Alright.
think of the fact that if you turn love around, it's the beginning of evolve.
Extra virgin olive oil.
No, evolve, evolution, evolve, mind, in consciousness.
Yes.
Through
I
love.
love it. I like it.
Steve, I am an empath. And sometimes when I'm in situations where I'm in a group and it becomes too much energy, too much negative energy, I'm able to sit and kind of focus myself and get out of it, but still be present. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Mhm.
That's perfect. And that's what that's consciousness, and that's what we, none of us are perfect at it, right? But
Right.
to do that is to be conscious, to be aware of what's going on around you, but to choose something, different, to choose to focus on that piece. Yeah, that's perfect. Really good. Nice work. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Steve.
So
Thank you, Steve.
sure.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.